Starting up in like 5 minutes. If you have any questions, throw them in the comments. Yeah, Danny, it really sucks. No golf in Ontario. Not a good place to be at the moment. Wagwan. Gonna kick it off in a few minutes. If you have any questions, drop them down. I got a big list today. Slices and fades, all right. If Doug Ford asked to be in one of my schools, I'd change his grip. I'd make his stance 3 feet wide. I'd bend over 90 degrees at the waist like Michelle Wie was putting, and then I'd fire him. Yeah, man, Jamaica sounds great. I can't wait for Half Moon. Those schools are going to be sick next year. Bradley. Oh. Brad, you coming to a golf school? They're going to start up June 1. All right, so slices and pulls, those will be pretty much the same thing. Yes, please come see me. We're probably going to start up June 1 up at TPC Toronto. One of the best ranges in Ontario. Present. Volume okay there, Scrizzle? A low right miss with the driver. You're a lefty, so sounds like some low pulls. Okay, got that covered. Hopefully I don't run out of wine tonight. All right, cool. Okay, so first things first tonight, I got a big list of people that have sent some stuff in over the past 5 or 6 days. Some pretty cool things, some pretty, lots of stuff on the golf course. I guess some of the people that were sending me info or sending me questions had a lot of questions about how to play golf. But the first one that I'm going to get into is a little bit deep, but it's kind of fun. It's all about lag. So, you know, like, what is lag? I think there's a lot of different ways that we can lag this golf club. It's a whole lot more than just the angle of the shaft to your arm, although that's kind of like the telling point that things are going well. Lag actually has, we have like 4, maybe 5 different ways that we can lag this golf club. And lag is just basically a way to create some kinetic energy or some stored energy into how we're going to swing this club. So if we take a look at how the body creates power from a kinematic sequence, from a biomechanical way to create speed, right? Like if we were throwing a ball, we would have a bit of a weight transfer, we would have a shoulder move, we would have an arm move, you'd have a wrist move, right? 1, 2, 3, and 4. Well, in golf, we have the same thing. We have 4, maybe 5 different ways of creating a power source from the inside of us, so proximal to distal. How do we find a way to create energy and speed from here and translate it out to here? So the way that that's done, first of all, is that when we start to make our backswing, right, the first way is that our body starts to move into our lead arm. So the first place that we're going to lag, create some lag, is from the body, right, from our body motion into our lead arm. So when I'm at the top of my swing and I do all this fun stuff with my legs and my hips and all that, right, I want to find a way to transfer that energy all the way into my lead arm. And that's when you start to see the lead arm almost like suck into the chest. You'll notice there's not much of an angle there between my arm and my chest. But you'll notice that as I go this way with it, that arm's coming off my chest. So the first way we create lag is right here between the lead bicep and the lead pec, that way. And, you know, I kind of describe this as though that we're trying to give somebody a backhand slap. So if I was standing here and someone was standing beside me and I wanted to give them a whack with the back of my Red Rooster here, I'd get a little bit of a turn and I would turn my body first before my arm snapped out and whacked them, right? That's the motion. From the top of the swing, trying to get the body to move to start to get this arm to release off my chest. That's lag number 1. Now, lag source number 2 is a little bit more than an outward swinging motion. It's more of a thrusting motion. So that's going to start to come down to, you know, how it is that I use my right arm, right? So golfers can get to the top of their swing this way, and if a golfer delays when how fast or how early they push this right arm out like that, and they're able to keep that right elbow bent longer, you're delaying when it is that you can push on this golf club. So that lag is a push lag, and that's from the right arm or the trail arm going from the top of the swing down. And it's also one that really gets out of whack with most golfers, because most golfers either get to a position at the top of their swing where their arm isn't in a position to push, because if it did, it would push in the wrong way. But most of the time it has to do with first the arm getting out of position. So the arm is supposed to bend more in front of us this way. And when that arm bends to the side a little bit, it gets out of spot. We can't really do much with it. So that's when lag number 3 or power source number 3 starts to kick in. And that third power source that we're going to try and get to is how the wrist works, right? And we normally see it in the swing by a wrist angle right here. But that wrist angle is created, right? If I didn't have anything here and I started to really drive my chest into my arm, that club's going to start to suck in this way. If I can push my arm down closer to the ground while maintaining that glove wrist cock, right, that angle there, that's going to help me produce a little more speed at the ground. So that's the first lag. And then the final one, the one that kicks in down at the bottom, that's one where the arm kind of rotates back to where it started. So you can see that my lead arm is pretty straight, pretty pointed at the ball. And as I roll it back this way, I've loaded up an ability to release it into the ball. Now, if those pieces, 1, 2, 3, the chopping motion in 3, and the rolling motion in 4, if they're out of sequence, what's going to happen is number 4, the rolling motion, is going to start to kick in too early. And if we start to kick in that arm roll too early, that's when the club face gets really misaligned. That's when it starts to come in open or closed. We hit it fat or we hit it thin. That's the last power source. So you can almost think of these like, 4 people on an assembly line or a 4-person relay. We've got the first one has to do its thing to load up and release in order to let the second one really kick into gear. And then the third one being the chop down at the bottom, and the final one being the roll. And if we can get that rolling action down at the bottom to be the last one or the latest one, that means it's going to work the least amount. And since that club face is basically the steering wheel of the shot, we want to have that happen, or we want to have that kick in later on. If you get really deep into the golf swing, there's some people that talk about a 5th lag, a 5th power source into the ball. And that's, once the arm starts to go into the chest and it releases, backhand slap, and then the right arm push power, and then we have the chop power, then the roll power. We have a bit of a slap power at the bottom. And that's that right wrist right down here slamming through that way. Now, that right wrist and that rolling of the left arm kind of go hand in hand. So you can kind of give it a bit of a power boost to that right hand. So all of those different pieces are ways that we can create power to the golf club, right? I mean, this isn't about power within our body. This is power into the golf club. And if all of the stuff that we do with our body, from how we use our feet and how we transfer our weight, and then, you know, how we start to turn a little bit, right? Hip power this way. All of that stuff doesn't really do much for us if it's not transferring into that slap right there, that backhand slap power. If it's not getting into the lead shoulder, right, it's just not going to work for us. So there's 4 or 5 different ways that we can power this golf club from a lag perspective, and I think that, you know, the media and the pictures and the stuff we hear on TV really talks about how to create lag from this perspective. Right? But you can really set up to a golf ball and you can get your arms to move really fast, which is going to create that angle. But if you're not able to get rid of that in time, it's not any use to you. So I've said this for years, that I think that all golfers overlag it somewhere. They've got one person in that relay running too far and too hard. And when those things start to happen and we start to get a little bit of out of sequence or out of positioning, and we're not able to let the lag build up and release at the right time, that's when we get crooked shots. That's when we start to see the body compensate, you know, from this perspective this way, or a golfer that might overlag their chop power, that's the wrist coming this way, might back up. They might back up out of their shot, which actually, first of all, doesn't even release the first one, and then they have to really chop down hard at the bottom. So we found, you know, there's lots of ways that we can compensate to smooth out that 4-person relay or that 4 lag power relay. But all in all, if we can start to understand which one of those 4 power sources aren't being used and loaded and released correctly, I think that's the first way to start hitting better shots. And in my lessons, when I start to work with golfers that start to say, hey, like, that just felt effortless. Well, the effortless comes when the golfer learns how to release the part that they're lagging too much. And when you start to understand all those pieces and how to change it for a golfer, they're going to start to say, wow, that's effortless, which just basically means that they're not working as hard as they were before. You know, most golfers aren't getting paid for how much energy they put into the golf swing. And when they start to understand the one piece that they need, and it starts to get a little bit faster and happen a little bit sooner, and all of their energy is stored and released just before the club gets to the ball, that's when it starts to be easy or effortless. But with all of those sequences, with all of those things, from the backhand slap power to your push power to your chop power and then your roll power or slap power at the bottom, you know, all of those things can be you know, they can be adjusted and tweaked, and they can be, you know, loaded up and accelerated, but they also have to have a deceleration pattern in order to help the next one go. Because I know that if we just stand here and roll the arm, we can only get so far. If you bend the wrist and slap it down there, you can only hit it so far. But if I'm able to bend my wrist and really load that thing up this way, and then get my body back to there, and then let the wrist slap, I've loaded 2 different sources. I've been able to have one accelerate and decelerate, which fires off the next one. So the whole way to create power has a lot to do with gas pedals, then brakes. So it's a gas pedal and a brake, and then a gas pedal and a brake, and a gas pedal and a brake, and a gas pedal and a brake, and then a hit. So all of the ways that we want to create power and create acceleration, and people see the speed, right? The golfer feels acceleration. Everybody around us, the golfer, sees the speed. If you can get the right gas pedal brake sequence into the golf ball, all of that stuff happens before impact, and it's going to be a shorter time than you're used to. So when you get those sequences right, boy, is it ever good. So talking about that and talking about why it is that golfers happen to maybe slice the ball or pull the ball, I mean, slice and a pull go hand in hand. If I'm getting a golf ball to slice, there's a good chance that my golf club is cutting across the golf ball with an open face, or I'm swinging, you know, down the target line with an open face. Either way I look at it, the face is open. So, you know, one thing that I've noticed watching a lot of different golfers, a lot of great ball strikers, is that lots of pros have the face lined up differently at the bottom, meaning that some hit it pretty straight, some hit draws, some hit fades. But the one thing that all those golfers have in common is that none of them actually take the golf club and twist it to the right. Right? There are no golfers that twist the shaft to the right and then twist it to the left on the way through, like it's a door opening and closing. You know, in a short shot, in a bunker shot for sure, that club's going to twist this way. But when I talk about like powering the club and hitting the ball far, you know, no golfers are twisting it to the right. They might have an open face at the bottom, but they've twisted that shaft this way on the way back and probably held it that way for a pretty significant amount of time on the way through. So if you've got some issues and some trouble with the ball starting left and whether it stays left or it curves out to the right, there's a good chance that you're not putting enough twist in this way on the backswing. So if I were to start here, you can kind of imagine where that shaft is along the ground. If I was to take that club back square, that's what it would look like. A square club face is perpendicular to the plane, right? A perpendicular piece. So if my club is here and that's the plane and I take it back on plane, that's where the club has to be. So that shaft is actually, you know, staying down, right? We call that closed, or it has been called closed, right? And if we can keep it that way throughout the swing, that closed club face has a better chance of striking the ball solid. Meaning that if I twist the face, just for fun like this, take it up to the top, bring it back down to the ball, I can bring it back down fairly square, club's kind of, you know, angled forward, and from there I can hit a draw, or I could hit a fade. But if I have this club face open, at some point my body's going to have to stop, allow the shaft to twist back to the left where it started, and that's where we start getting shots that are thin or high or slices. So I recommend that if you have a trouble with, you know, getting the ball to not slice so much, give a little downward twist to the shaft. A downward twist on the way back. You know, I hate the words open and closed because those are all relative to something. And when I talk to people about, okay, so it's open, what's it open to? Right? We know that a door is open relative to the frame that it's in, or it's closed relative to the frame that it's in. But in golf, we don't really have a frame. We don't have a context to it. So, you know, one of the things that we've noticed is that if I bring the club face back like this at impact, just like that, everyone's going to say that's open. And if I have my hips turned, right, the way we're supposed to have them at impact, the club face is pointed that way, and my hips are pointed that way, but they're both called open. So open and closed really are, they're confusing. And I wish that we kind of got rid of all that stuff in golf lingo because it really confuses people because they can point in totally different directions. But if we have a club face that is twisted down or left or twisted to the right, we can get that. If I have hips that are twisted too far to the right or twisted too far to the left, we can get that. So right and left is way better than open and closed. So when it comes to the slice and it comes to the pull, both of those have to do with a little bit of the path not being enough out relative to the golfer, right? So a pull and a slice, even though one goes to the left and one goes out to the right, a two-way miss, well, they're cousins. They're going to be there. Like a real two-way miss is a push and a pull. That's a big issue in your game. Or if you have a slice and a draw, another huge issue. The ball shouldn't curve in both directions. The ball shouldn't stay straight in both directions. Both of those things have a serious swing flaw somewhere. And most of the time it's going to be found in what I mentioned before, one of those 4 or 5 lag sources. So slices and pulls, same thing with pushes and draws. Right? A path going inside out to the ball, if the face is square, it's going to push to the right. And if that same path has the face a little closed, it's going to draw to the left. So, you know, we have to understand a little bit about the two-way miss because the best drivers on tour miss the ball on the right and left side equally. 55 on one side, 45 on the other side. And the worst drivers of the golf ball miss the ball consistently on the same side. So trying to avoid one side of the golf course sounds great around the campfire, but it has no practical use when we talk about improving the game and creating strategy. Next one's going to talk a little bit about uneven lies. So when I'm talking about some uneven lies, that means that, you know, when I'm setting up to a shot in the fairway and the ball's above my feet or the ball's below my feet, that's drastically going to change the plane of my swing, right? If we think of T-ball this way, right, the T-ball swing has a really horizontal kind of an action to it. But if I set up to my golf ball, which is a little bit above my feet because maybe there's a slope, that golf swing is going to be a little bit more rounded. It's a little more Ferris wheel. And the more Ferris wheel action there is, the more that ball is going to draw. So we want to try and understand that when we're on a slope where the ball is above our feet, that ball has a tendency to draw. And it also, just as I mentioned, has a tendency to start to the right. So it could be a push or a draw. So when you have those situations on the golf course, play for the draw, aim a little bit, to the right so the ball can curve back. And if it doesn't curve back, there's a good chance it's going to stay out there to the right. But if you've got let's just say it's a slope where the ball's below your feet, there's an easier chance of getting that ball started left, a better chance of the ball curving to the right. So make sure you choose an appropriate target where neither of those situations are going to land you in trouble, like a deep bunker or a hazard or water or wherever it may be. You want to make sure that when you understand how the ball is going to react off of it, you play for it a little bit, and then from there create a conservative target so that you don't lose a shot just because the ball is above or below your feet. Next one has to do with bad lies. Chip shots around the green with bad lies. I think that, if the ball is sitting down around the green, let's call it, first of all, in deep rough. If that ball's sitting down around the green and it's in deep rough, first we need more club speed. So you need more club speed to get the club through that long grass. But I also recommend making sure that you open the face a little bit. Because by having the face open, it takes this golf club, which is about, there it is there, it's that thick. And as I open the face, it gets thinner, right? So now I'm only taking up that much real estate in the world for that golf club. So when I open the club face, it has a chance to actually get through better. One of the misconceptions that if the ball's sitting down, we need to get steeper on it. So if you were to open the face and then hit down on the golf ball, there's a good chance you could hit the top of the ball and drive it into the ground, or you could scull it across the green. So when the face is open like that, it takes up less real estate, like I mentioned, but from there you want to try and make sure that your swing stays shallow, that it stays close to the ground. Not lifting up and getting steep with it, keeping it a little bit close to the ground. Now, if you're in long rough and you've got 80 or 90 yards, that's a different scenario. That's when you want to get steep to pop that ball up in the air, and there's a good chance from there. It's not going to spin. It's going to bounce up and go forward. So you just want to be able to play those from different scenarios and understand that when you're trying to hit it far, you get steep, but if you're trying to hit it short, keep it shallow. Open the club face, hold the club a little bit lighter. Around the green is the only place I recommend holding the club lighter. If you're trying to create speed, hold the club tight. But hold the club lighter around the green so you can't create too much speed, and keep that club working shallow along the ground. Keep that club face open through your shot, and from there that club should get under the ball a little bit, right? Because it's going to be shallow, and get the ball out a little bit soft. One thing you'll find from that is the ball won't go as far as you think based on how much speed you're creating. So it's almost like a missed shot. It's going to come out a little bit like fluffy, like you just kind of gave it an underhand toss and it could roll out. So try those around the green when it comes to a bad lie around the green. Now, if you have a bad lie in terms of like it's sitting on hard pan, right? So it's sitting on ground that's really hard and there's no grass and it's sitting right there, try to use less loft. Try to hit a shot that maybe has an 8-iron or a 7-iron and almost hit it like a putt, because that's your best way of getting any type of contact that's going to get the ball to roll. If you've got a hard pan lie, let's just call it like on a cart path, and you're trying to get the ball up in the air, you've got to have a little bit of skill. I hope you've tried that shot before without trying it on the golf course, because there's a really good chance you're going to let the club hit the ground first and it's going to hit the equator of the golf ball and end up 100 yards away. Or, you actually just pure scull it and you don't even get to the ground. So if it's a bad lie and there's no grass around, choose a longer club, make a putting stroke. But if it's really deep around the green, that's when you want to open the club face, take less real estate, and just kind of pop it out. Weight distribution. How do I distribute my weight in the golf swing? Well, I always try to feel that my weight is kind of a reaction to what I'm trying to do. So that, if I'm setting up to a shot, I'm going to stay here at about 50-50. But when I make a backswing and I start turning my arms and my golf club over this way, well, that stuff's heavy. And it's going on this side of me, so there's a good chance my body's going this way. If all of that stuff happens really quickly, then your body's going to counter that by moving forward. So if your backswing is really quick, you're going to move forward, and then on the downswing, you're going to move back. So he's got almost a reverse weight movement to it. But I think in a general golf swing, when you're set up to a shot and you make a backswing to the top of your swing, you're moving a lot of your arms and golf club and all this stuff that's heavy this way. That kind of creates the weight transfer for you. And as you start to move into your front side this way and you start to rotate and bring all this stuff down, it kind of moves it this way. And I worry about talking too much about transferring the weight forward, because most of the time that golfer is going to slide everything forward this way, right? Slide their weight onto their front foot, and the next thing you know, they're tilted back this way. They haven't had a chance to do that backhand slap because the arm gets stuck in the body a little bit. And then from here, we're just not going to really be able to get to the golf ball. You know, if you've got troubles with pushes, maybe even push slices, or balls that hook too hard, even low hooks, there's a good chance that your lower body is outracing your upper body and you're getting too much tilt this way. So I kind of like to feel that, you know, I'm pushing into the ground with my feet, but I'm pushing and I'm not really sliding and transferring my weight from side to side consciously. If things are going in a bad direction, I'll definitely use that as a tool to help golfers get a different feel. But as a blanket approach, I don't really like talking about transferring the weight too much because, well, you know, one part of the swing goes this way, and the next part of the swing goes that way, and just as a function of that, you know, body moves. And if you've ever seen a little kid play golf, a 10-year-old swing a golf club, they're not thinking about moving their weight, but boy does it ever move. So I don't think it's a conscious thing too much in order to make that weight distribution, you know, something to do. When to turn the chest toward the target. That was one that, you know, I think that there's a lot of info nowadays on trying to open up and trying to get the, you know, the chest open and the whole body open at impact like it's a holy grail of ball striking. When in reality, if we look at how the body works in the swing, you know, the hip fire happens by here, and then the chest turns open and slows down by there, and then the arm speed is about to here. So by the time I get to the golf ball, I would be very, very comfortable being, you know, let's go this way, being only about 5 degrees open from where I started at impact. Not 20 or 30, and definitely not in a position where I'm facing the target before I get the club to the ball, because you can see there, my arm's glued to my chest. I've never had a chance to release that guy. So I don't think that we really need to have too much focus on getting the chest turned to the target until after the ball is gone. You know, so once we get to a point where we've hit the shot, from here on in, if my legs keep getting all the way to the target and I stand up tall, it's going to bring my chest around with me. So, you know, I would say that the only time I talk about the chest getting open or the chest turning is when I want the golfer to do it at the end of their swing just to complete the motion. So again, not really a conscious to-do list would be, you know, getting my chest open, because, you know, the golfers that I find that have the chest the most open have what I call the wheelchair pattern, where it's like sitting in a wheelchair, and what they're trying to do is create a whole bunch of speed with their upper body. It's a very baseball-like swing. And if we get to a point where the chest turns open too much, and then the arms fire off late, well, you've used your arm speed way too late in the game. And if the arm speed's too late in the game, we never had a chance to let the club release. So there's a golfer that, you know, has to hit the ball low and to the right, or big, big hooks to the left, all because that they've used their chest to create power and used their hips and their lower body as a platform, right? And all of this stuff happens. When in reality, you know, if my lower body starts to turn this way, my hips are more pointed left than my chest, and if I can keep that orientation a little bit as I start to swing through, I'm going to end up finishing my swing with my body fairly square to the target line. So, you know, I think that the opening of the chest is definitely not something that I teach. It's not part of any of the patterns that I enjoy, you know, working with, or if anything, I'm trying to get people to not turn their chest because maybe they come from a baseball background, or they just thought that they needed to get all their power from up here. So I would definitely say that I talk more about don't move the chest than I do move the chest. Setup. So how to set up to the golf ball. Well, you know, I think that there's so many different ways that look good. So the one setup that I don't like, and I've really never liked this, is the idea that you're supposed to put a golf club along the back of your head and along the back of your spine, and you're supposed to tilt with all that stuff right there. Well, right now I'm looking about 8 feet in front of my golf ball, and the only way I can look down at my ball is if I'm sticking my eyes out underneath my glasses, which is ridiculous. And I think that so many people start looking at Adam Scott as having perfect posture, when if you asked a chiropractor, they would say that is not perfect posture. If you talked to many of the golf instructors, you would say that's not perfect posture. The spine isn't supposed to be totally straight. It's not supposed to be in a spot where, we've got too much tilt to the body or bend and verticalness to the body. So the way that I like to really talk about the setup is, first of all, I want the face pointed at the ball. So if I had like glasses on, the arms of my glasses are really pointed at the ball. So from here, my face is fairly, pointed down to the ground. But one thing I love to do is I love to get these balance discs out and, just ask a golfer, hey, can you just stand on these for a sec? All right, find your balance points, grip the club, look down at the ground, and put the club down. And wherever that ends up, you're in a pretty good spot. Balanced from toe to heel, balanced from left to right, obviously, because I'm not wobbling around too much. And then from there, that's a spot that I want to start with. Looking down at the ground, really feeling as though that I'm a little bit more hunched over than I am perfectly straight. So, postures that I've really liked over the years, like Ben Hogan, fantastic posture where it almost looks like he's kind of sitting back and sitting down and putting his chin down. That's a great posture that I like, but I like to feel as though, or ask a golfer to feel as though that when they're setting up to the ball, that they're taking their insides, their stomach, and sucking it back to their spine, almost like you're pushing your shirt in, or you're pushing your back into the back of your shirt. And if you can feel like you're trying to push your body into the back of your shirt and point your chin down at the ground, that's a good starting point. It's a good place to start to get feeling that you're balanced over the ball or comfortable over the ball. So posture also is going to be pretty different for everybody. I mean, we're going to have tall golfers, golfers with long arms, golfers with short arms, all kinds of different things. And I think that if we can get the feeling that we're in an athletic stage right here, like someone was going to run up and tackle us, that's kind of where I'd like to sit and set up and start looking at how it is that I set up to the golf ball. And from there, I'd make some tweaks. But, the posture that I don't like on tour would be Adam Scott, straight back. That's not really my thing. Simply because that's loading the back too early. By the time we get to the top of the backswing, you want to have somewhat of a straight back, because when the back's straighter, we can turn more. When the back is more hunched over this way, we're not turning as much. We're not able to turn in a flex position. So I like the setup to be balanced. Balance discs on Amazon are $30. Being able to get those at home and stand out and get comfortable with it, it's the first place to start. Then the next place I'd look at is making sure that, the face is looking down on the golf ball, that we can have our comfortable vision, which is right here, angled right down on the ball. That's kind of what I look for. Okay, 2 more questions here. The first one is, when do I get fit? When do you get fit for golf clubs? And I would say that, you could talk to a fitter and they'll say, oh, get fit for clubs right away. You got to make sure they work for you. And not always. I mean, a golfer doesn't need a set of clubs that each iron is worth $500 because the shaft is an upgrade and all this other stuff. I think that when it comes to the length of the golf club, that's going to be pretty important, right? How far your hands are from the ground when you stand tall is going to really be a close dictator on how long to get your golf clubs. And if they're not a standard length, if they're long, they're going to have to be bent more upright, meaning the shaft is more upright from the head. And if they're short, they're going to be flatter. But I would say that, if you're a golfer that's shooting 100, you can probably get away with golf clubs that are standard length and standard lie. Unless, you're 6'4" or you're 5'2", then yeah, you would need something that's a little different. One thing that I do look at when it comes to getting golfers fit for golf clubs is, how big are the grips? Are the grips a size that are good enough to, allow the golfer to get their hands all the way around it? So grip size is a big one for me, whether it's a thicker grip or a smaller grip. It has all to do with the size of your hand. So, I wear a medium large Red Rooster here. So, I've got a mid-sized grip with a couple layers of tape underneath, and I find that works best for me because that's how I'm most comfortable gripping the golf club. There really isn't a direct relationship to the size of the grip and how you curve the golf ball. There was some talk for a while that bigger grips help you not slice it or whatever, but not really. It has a lot more to do with the size of your hand. So take a look at that when it comes to the fitting. And then depending on how good you are at golf, it's going to depend on what type of club head you have. You have a game improvement club, a middle range club, or a blade. But I think that anyone that's playing a blade understands that they need to get fit when they need to get fit. And so the last question here has to do with putter speed. You know, golfers say that they've got a whole lot of issues controlling the distance with their putt. And I think that when you start to think about your distance or your speed control, I think it all comes back to how fast you move the putter and what direction you move the putter in. So, you know, I really do believe that the golfer, again, the golfer feels the putter accelerate, which means it's here off the takeaway and here in transition. It's not at the golf ball. And if a golfer can feel the putter accelerate away from the target, so if I'm putting to you right here in the camera, I want to feel the putter's acceleration on this side of the golf ball. So away from you, and then when I stop the swing, right, when I stop my transition to go in the other direction, using a brake is acceleration. It's just the other direction of it, right? I want to feel like I'm accelerating this club away from the ball and stopping. And if I can feel that I accelerate the putter away from the ball, stop it, and when I stop my hands, the putter starts coming in the other direction, that's what gives us a better sensation of how hard the ball is going to be hit. But if we speed the club up through impact, accelerate through the ball, that's not only going to lead to push putts very often, but the ball isn't going to have a very consistent speed or distance because you're not consistent through the ball. An accelerating putter is changing its speed. We want that putter to be smooth through the ball, like clean through the ball. So I would say that if we could really get the sensation through the putt with putting that the putter moves, you know, accelerates or moves fast away from the ball, and the change in direction is hard, using the brake and changing direction, that's what brings the putter back to the ball. The forward swing is almost like a recoil, right? It's changing direction with a little bit of acceleration there, and the putter comes back to the ball at a constant speed. Constant speed is zero acceleration. But when the putter changes direction, it goes from 3, 2, 1, 0, 1, 2, 3, that acceleration is through the roof. So we want to make sure the golfer feels acceleration in the opposite direction of the hole in order to have a constant speed by the time the putter gets back to the ball. So kind of you know, a short answer to a question that, you know, could get pretty deep. But I think that from there, if you practice those things, I think you're going to find that you're going to bring the putter face back a little more square. You're going to hit the ball a little more solid, but your distance control and your speed control get a little bit better. So those are all the questions that I've got for today. I don't think I've got anything else that I want to go with here today. No other questions have come in, so that's going to be my chat for tonight. I thank you guys for tuning in, and have a good weekend. And if you're in Ontario, well, we've got 4 more weeks of this lockdown. Fingers crossed golf opens soon. Thanks, guys. Have a good night.